time for the meet and greet. Meet and greet. It's time for the meet and greet.
Hello everyone, welcome to Asavari's Knitting Show 32. And here we go with Erin Spring. So spring is here in the true sense. And I would request Erin to please introduce yourself to our beautiful audience.
So thank you for having me here. My name is Erin Spring. I'm a community servant as well as an elected official in Ossining, serving on the Ossining Board of Ed. However, I'm here as a private citizen. Happy to be here to discuss politics, pop culture, social issues, and all sorts of good stuff that the media is not covering, and that Asavari is, always looking to cover and get a good handle on these current issues.
Thank you so much, Erin. So let's just come to the issues. So the first one is Oscar and Grammy 2022. So let's talk about the Oscar first. The 94th Academy Awards ceremony presented by the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, AMPAS, honored the best films released between March 1st and December 31st, 2021 at the Dolby Theatre in Los Angeles on March 27, 2022. So including the best picture, and we have all the spices that happened. So Will Smith is the best actor winner and Jessica Chastain is the best actress winner. So my question to you would be, what is your opinion about this year's Oscar? And apart from fashion and Will Smith and Chris Rock fight, was there any other spice?
So I think the biggest takeaway for me was it was a distraction from all the big issues going on. And I don't mean a distraction in a bad way. I think it's a distraction in a good way. The country needed something to watch, something to look forward to, something to talk about that was not related to Russia or inflation or, gas prices. So I think, in my opinion, the biggest takeaway was that for one night, we were able to escape and actually just focus on things that essentially make us happy, entertainment. It's almost like the Super Bowl for the pop culture industry, right? On Super Bowl night, we're only focused on football. We're not worried about anything else. So for the Oscars, my biggest takeaway is we were only focused on pop culture, entertainment, and things that will keep us from talking about some of the bad stuff going on. With that being said, I think it's important that the Oscars also notes some current issues. There's always, some sort of a philanthropic or charitable message in there. There's always some sort of a message in there to talk about social awareness. So it's not like we were completely distracted, but we were at least able to come together and look to actors and actresses to guide us and to talk about, some of the issues we're facing, but also to focus on the best movies of the year, the best pictures and the best actors and actresses. It was a breath of fresh air, in my opinion, and not what we normally would expect on our day-to-day basis. So that's my biggest takeaway, is the fact that it gave us something else to talk about, something else to focus on. And we need that. We need positive energy right now. So that's how I see it. The Will Smith, Chris Rock thing, other than that, it was a good ceremony. It really was. We're all focused on that. But other than that, there was beautiful suits and dresses being worn by people. The fashion was amazing. The speeches were amazing. The messages were amazing. And we just can't get distracted by that one bad moment that occurred. So that's my biggest takeaway from the Oscars.
I know it was nice, get together. I had nice time with my friends. I had pizza, tandoori chicken, and some drinks. So I really enjoyed, my food while watching Oscar. And I completely agree with you. So I really enjoyed the fashion. Oh my God. I mean, it's like, yes, the fashion and the jewelry and all other spices provided. So let's talk a little bit very quickly about the Grammy. The 64th annual Grammy Awards ceremony was held at the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas on April 3rd, 2022. It recognized the best recordings, compositions, and artists of the eligibility year running from September 1st, 2020 to September 30th, 2021. So John Batista received the most nominations with 11 and Justin Bieber with 8. So my question to you is, do Oscar and Grammy make any difference in movie and song selection? And I want to ask you this also. Do you think that it's a personal choice of what to like and what not to?
So I'll start with the first question. I think it used to make a huge difference. I think it was, back before the internet was really big. I think this was a way for people to say, hey, look, my song won an award or my movie won an award. Go watch it. I think things have changed as social media has become more prevalent. I don't think that song selection is as influenced by awards. I think it's more influenced by what's hot, right? And, for example, you can put out a single or a song and a million people on Twitter happen to like it and they're all sharing it around. I think that has taken away from just listening to music or watching movies based off what awards they won. So I think the power of social media is a wonderful thing in that sense that people, if you get nominated but you didn't win, you can still obviously advance yourself because of your platforms, because of your followers, because of the different ways to get your ideas and music out there. So I think this was big in terms of song selection and preferences 20 years ago, even 15 years ago, let's even say 10 years ago. But as the social media has progressed and as Gen Z and millennials have really gotten on Twitter and Snapchat and TikTok, I think there's other ways and other avenues for people to get their songs out there and for song selection to really take place on a wide scale level. So yes, it helps. Don't get me wrong. And, all the major outlets and news outlets will be talking about it. But at the same time, it's not, if you didn't get it, you can still get your messages out there and you can still become very popular because information is spread so rapidly and we have such access to information, especially in New York State, where I live and where you live, only 4% of the people are not on the internet. So 96% of the people have the opportunity to see songs or, pieces of the news or movies just based off of what's put out on the internet. So I think that's taken away, and in a good way. I don't mean it's taken away in a bad way. It's taken away in a good way what an Oscar and Grammy means, because now there's more exposure, there's more atmosphere, there's more ways to get out there. As for your second question, which is about preference, we're all different, right? We all like different things. So I don't necessarily know that a committee on the Oscars or Grammy is going to be making a decision that is indicative of what the average person thinks. And even like my preferences for music, my preferences for movies are probably different from yours, are probably different from your sons, are probably different from my mom's, are probably different from my neighbors. It's all, different preferences, and that's totally fine. That's the beauty of art and creativity, is we can all like different things. So I think there's no real way to categorize what's hot, what's not hot, what's the best, what's not the best. It's all personal preference. So we could like something and we could push something. And that's totally fine in my opinion.
Well, that's a very good answer. Let's move on to the next topic of discussion, which is very sensitive. And we need to talk about it because April is the Autism Acceptance or Awareness Month. The puzzle ribbon is the symbol for autism awareness and is promoted by the Autism Society as means of supporting awareness for autism. Autism Spectrum Disorder, ASD, refers to a broad range of conditions characterized by challenges with social skills, repetitive behaviors, speech, and non-verbal communication. According to the Centers for Disease Control, autism affects an estimated 1 in 44 children in United States today. So my question to you is that, do you see any remedy of autism? I mean, about the symptoms and how can we make it better?
So I think I'm not a medical professional nor am I a doctor, but I think it's safe to say science is advancing at rapid paces, and at some point soon, I'm sure both the screening and the remedies to solving the issue will come about. What my answer is really going to entail is how do we treat everybody equally? And I think it's important. April's Autism Awareness Month. We're wearing our blue. You know, you wear blue during Autism Awareness Month. And I think we need to be more inclusive. I think we need to normalize how to treat people equally, how to treat people the same, how to bring people into our circle, how to not make people feel like they're different, if you will. You know, so my remedy is, you know, if you have kids and your kids' friends are autistic, you know, there's no point in bringing that up. There's no point in treating somebody differently. Treat them as exactly as you would a non-autistic person. Bring them into the table, you know, bring them to your table rather. You have lunch with them, play with them at recess, you know, in gym, include them in the games and everything like that. You know, be friendly, be kind. So I think one of the biggest things we can do is we can't look at it as, you know, autistic, non-autistic. We have to look at it as humans, you know, children. We're all children of God. We're all human beings. We have to treat each other the same. You got to treat somebody who's autistic the same way as you would non-autistic. And I don't mean in terms of how you teach. I don't mean in terms of how they learn. I don't mean in terms of you know, how we go about learning different, you know, different ways of learning. I mean in terms of just how we treat people. We shouldn't be looking at people like they, you know, are an alien, or that they are somehow different from us just because they learn differently or have a different disorder. So my solution or my remedy is to treat everybody the same. And as screening and remedies and science advance and get better, you know, I think that'll make it easier too. So best thing we can do is teach our children to be kind. Best thing we can do is teach our children to treat all their classmates the same. And bring everybody to the table. It doesn't matter what color you are, doesn't matter what religion you are, doesn't matter what learning disorder you may have. If we treat each other equally and bring people together, that people won't feel different. People won't feel like they're an outcast or they're ostracized. So that's my solution is bringing people to the table, treating everybody the same, giving everybody opportunity, and normalizing differences, because we can point out and say things are different without alienating, and we can use differences to actually bring us together, and that's what makes us more unique human beings. That's what makes us more well-rounded human beings. That's what makes us stronger human beings, being able to work with and include people who may learn differently from us, think differently than us, look differently than us. So that would be my message for Autism Awareness Month.
Right. I mean, I completely agree with you, because the more, you know, special children, they get an opportunity to mingle with everybody else and treated like everybody else, I think, you know, they will also communicate better, because communication is one of the main issue that, you know, people they face for special children, especially those who are autistic. And sometimes, you know, autistic children or autistic person, they can do certain things even better than us, like normal people.
Oh yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. I do have friends who are you know, autistic, and they some of the smartest people you've ever met. You know, they have a great memory, have a photographic memory. They'll just, you know, they could do math in their head, 5,027 times 3,785, just like that, boom. And
Yeah.
it's a wonderful thing. So it's, you know, I think you made a good point in terms of communication. You know, when we bring people to the table, it also changes the way we can communicate, they can communicate, and I think that's key too. So we can't look at people as if they're of a different intelligence, if you will, because many are of higher or even of the same or even higher intelligence than non-artistic kids. It's just a matter of how do we communicate, how do we play, and also how do we teach patience too with children, because they might think, oh, somebody's different, I don't want to deal with this. But we have to teach patience, because patience is how we grow, and patience is how we learn to accept people.
Exactly. That was a great answer. So now
Thank you.
let's, you're welcome. So let's talk about the drug trafficking in Central and South America. So this is one of the topic that, I want to talk about, I want to discuss because that is a very important issue. Latin America is a crucial geographic zone for drug production and trafficking. The Andean countries of Colombia, Peru, and Bolivia are the world's main cocaine producers, while Central America, Mexico, and the Caribbean have become the principal corridors for transporting drugs into the United States and Europe. Since 2008, the US Congress has supported the Central American Regional Security Initiative, CARSI, with approximately 800 million to fund programs for narcotics interdiction, strengthening law enforcement and justice institutions, and violence prevention through work with at-risk youth. The CARSI offers equipment, vehicles, and communication equipment, technical support, and guidance to counter drug trade. The program also supports special units that operate with the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration in Guatemala and Honduras to investigate drug cartels, share intelligence, and promote regional collaboration. The main reason is acute poverty, unemployment, gang competition, and else. The total drug industry amounts to 320 billion per year. USA spends about $40 billion on drugs. There have been so many casualties due to drug overdose every year. Dark web is used for buying and selling. So my question to you is, how can drug trafficking be controlled in a better way without hampering the relationship with the Central and the South American government?
So I think that's a multifaceted issue too, because what we're seeing now, the biggest killer in this country is the fentanyl. And the fentanyl is being shipped in from China into South America and Central America, being manufactured there by the cartels, and then sent over the U.S. border to the market of U.S. drug users. We've seen an epidemic within a pandemic, and drug use has gone through the roof. Overdose deaths, not just overdoses, deaths exceeded 100,000 people in the United States from the year 2020 to 21. We don't have the data yet for 2021 into 2022. That's insane. 100,000 American lives dead in those 12 months because of mostly because of fentanyl. So I think one of the biggest things we need to do is secure the U.S. border, and not with a wall. That's not going to do anything. People will tunnel underneath it, but we need to give Immigration and Customs Enforcement and Border Patrol the same amount of money that we would have used for a quote unquote wall, so that they can push for cyber security, that they can push for legal ports of entry, better surveillance at the legal ports of entry. We need to fix our immigration system too, because that's part of the issue as well. People are coming and being smuggled across the border, and unfortunately, many are being forced to bring drugs with them. And there are cartels using young children as mules for drug trafficking. So I think if we fix our immigration system as well, that will solve some of the drug issues. But that's the key, is we have got to secure the border. If we don't secure the border, the fentanyl and the other drugs will continue to flow into the country. And we need to look at the ramifications of this. 100,000 people died, like I said, in that fiscal year, most of whom were young people. That's 100,000 Americans, young people, who are now not contributing to the economy. That's 100,000 people who are now not having children. The future generations are just disappearing because of this. It's 100,000 people whose families now had to bury a loved one. So I think the issue is multifaceted. We have got to start by cutting off the supply. And we've also got to aid some of these South American, Central American, even North American, with Mexico being right there, governments with combating the cartels. I don't know if you've ever seen a cartel and their military army. They have military style weapons. They have tanks. They have anti-aircraft missiles. They have thousands of soldiers to fight for them. So they're an army within themselves. And now we've been fighting a war on drugs for years. It hasn't necessarily worked. So I think what we need to do is strengthen the economies of those countries, provide their governments with supplies and aid to not only A, combat cartels, but B, fix their education system. Why do people turn to drug dealing? Why do people turn to the cartels? Why do people turn to human trafficking and human smuggling? Because there's no opportunity. So I think as economies stabilize and get stronger in those countries, it will take away some of the black market and some of the push for people to go and sell drugs and become part of the drug trade. In this country, we've got to enforce our laws. We have in places like California and even in New York and Philadelphia, there's no enforcement of the drug laws. You can be out on the street shooting heroin and nothing happens to you. So I think you need an enforcement of the law. I don't think you should be throwing drug addicts in jail, but you should be telling a drug addict, you have an option here. You're either A, going to rehab, or B, you are going to jail. You pick. So I think it has to be tough love. You can't just coddle people. You can't just say, oh, they're fine. We can't force anybody to live a different life. We have got to be strong because drugs are controlling these people's mental psyche. They're hurting these people. Their families have essentially cut them off or given up on them and they're heartbroken over it. You got to be tough. We've got to be tough because at the end of the day, it's the best thing for these people. And again, you got to give them an option. You can go to rehab. We'll pay for it all. I have no issue with taxpayer funding going toward rehabbing people. If you don't want to do that, you're going to jail. You can't just sit in the street doing drugs, selling drugs to kids, promoting drug use amongst other people, and bringing people into your drug dens to do whatever. You can't have that. We either have a society or we don't. So we've got to be tough. We've got to secure the border. We've got to help the other countries and their government with educational programs. We've got to get on the Chinese government, that is, not the people, and say, stop shipping your fentanyl over to the Americas to be synthetically manufactured into, meth or heroin or any of these other drugs that people are using.
Right.
I'm sorry.
I completely agree with you with the educational programs. Like, the schools and institutions, they offer sex education. So I think, narcotics education, and if somebody would come, like, a fireman comes to schools and tell the children about how things work, how there is a fire escape, how if there is any kind of attack in the school, how they're going to save their lives, by hiding inside the closets, whatsoever, whatever it is. So I think, education or educating from childhood, that probably will ring some bell. What do you say?
I think there's education. I think we're hitting the nail right in the head here. Let's look at certain cities like Baltimore, where 13 out of the 39 high schools in Baltimore, not a single kid, not one, zero, could read at grade level or do math at grade level. So what happens when a kid from Baltimore with no opportunities and can't read and can't do math now has to, turn 18 and go do something with their life? There's no opportunity. They're going to turn to selling drugs. They're going to turn to their neighborhood dealer and start selling drugs, possibly even using drugs. So I think we got to better our education system. If we better our education system, especially in the big cities, Baltimore, Chicago, New York, Philadelphia, bring people up, from the ground up.
The upliftment, yes.
Yes, absolutely. We'll uplift people. And that in itself will stop a lot of the drug issues facing our country. If you look at, and let's get out of the cities for a minute, because it's not just a city problem. West Virginia, Tennessee, Kentucky, these are very rural areas, very small areas. People are turning to doing drugs because they have nothing else to do. They're bored. They're depressed because the jobs all left. The factories are gone. So we have got to have better jobs, trades programs, education. And we've also got to crack down, and the US government started this, crack down on the people who are manufacturing the opioids, the pharmaceutical companies. Because what happens when somebody breaks their back and they get the Percocets from the doctor? Well, the Percocets run out at some point, but that high that the Percocets provided, people are still chasing. Now, instead of going and buying a Percocet pill for $20 on the street, it's easier to buy 2 baggies of heroin for $10 that do the same job as a Percocet pill will do. So we've got to also cut down on and crack down, rather, not cut down, crack down on the pharmaceuticals. We're already starting to. There are some lawsuits going on. There were some settlements recently made, but they've taken advantage of this country. They've taken advantage of poor people. They've taken advantage of injured people by providing them with these pills that are a direct line, a gateway to then using heroin. And a lot of heroin nowadays contains fentanyl. That's what's killing people. So I think that's another thing we need to do, not just education, not just jobs programs, not just trades, not just bringing back manufacturing, cracking down on the pills in this country. Because if we crack down on that, we can crack down on a lot of the fentanyl and the heroin use as well. I get it. People have a surgery. They're in pain. There's got to be other ways to cope with it. You can't turn to drugs. And unfortunately, we have normalized turning to drugs.
I have one more question and suggestion. I don't know that if you will accept that. The thing is, just like the COVID exam, the government made it completely free.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't know that which child or which person is addicted to drugs. So if we can do some kind of physical test or physical exam, then the blood reports, the urine reports, they will specifically mention that if somebody is addicted to drug, the breath test or whatsoever, So will that help?
I think that's a tough one because there are people who casually use drugs and live phenomenal lives, and they don't see it as a problem. I'll give you an example. Many people.
But what about in schools, colleges, universities, and at workplaces, if that is done?
Oh, yes. I mean, I believe, especially in a private workplace, public workplace, definitely. If you're on the tax dollar, you should absolutely be drug tested. In the private workplace, I think it's up to the employer. But there's a lot of people on Wall Street who, once a month will go out to a party and sniff cocaine. What if we happen to test them the next day, versus the other 28 days of the month where they don't have cocaine in their system. So it's a tough sell there. I think I'm really talking about the people whose drug habits have taken over their lives. They are stealing from their families. They're stealing from friends. They can't hold down a job. They're mentally ill. They can't get things done normally. I don't want to crack down on somebody who is living a great life and they smoke marijuana once in a while. Nothing wrong with that. Or even the guy on Wall Street who went on a vacation and partied and, sniffed a line of cocaine. I don't really have an issue with that. But I do have an issue when people are letting it take over their lives. It's ruining lives. And it's to the point where, people are stealing from their own mother. How sick is that? They're stealing from their own mother to pay for their drug habits. So I think, on a public level, I definitely support the testing. A private level, I think it's up to the employer. But I do, at a young level with the schools, some of these institutions, these Catholic schools, these private institutions, that might work. That might be an incentive and say, look, if you want to stay here, you can't do drugs. Although typically if somebody's really highly addicted to drugs, especially heroin, I severely doubt they're enrolled in any school whatsoever. They're probably living on the street.
Right. So basically, for the upliftment, two things that we can think about. The first and foremost, importantly, is educating people from their childhood and tell them that how drugs can harm their life, physically and mentally both. And secondly, as you said, that private institutions, they can have a thorough physical exam so that they know that if somebody has drugs in their bloodstream, if there is any way that they can check and they can change and if they can cure that person, right?
Right. No, absolutely. And I think that's the way to
then,
go.
law and order are there, as you say, that to make the law and order stricter and also, tell them about the punishment and stuff, so that they know exactly that, there is not a bright future as
No,
far the drugs
absolutely.
are concerned, So if they know that what they're doing, if they know that how harmful and how toxic drugs are, then they will not steal their money to pay for their drugs from their mother's closet or purse, right?
Yep.
Or
It
sell
has to
some
start with
precious
proactivity.
things from their
Proactivity.
home. Hmm.
Yeah, proactivity is key because once you're addicted to the drug takes over. Doesn't matter how much you don't like it, doesn't matter how much you hate it, the drug wants to be taken. And addiction is very real. So we've got to be proactive, not reactive, proactive, teaching the children at a very young age, don't do this. And that's how we get there. But what do most drug users have? A troubled past, broken home, abusive home, physical abuse, trauma. I mean, the stories are insane. It's not your normal, American lifestyle. It's not your, yes, there's people from the suburbs, there's people from rich families, people from, two-family homes that are going out and doing drugs. Absolutely. But the vast majority of the people doing drugs have some sort of family trauma, have some sort of mental illness, have some sort of reason why they are doing the drugs. It's a way to cope, right? It's a way to cope with some sort of pain or trauma that they faced. So I think that's another thing too, is we have got to do our best to keep families together. We've got to do our best to promote, healthy family living. And that in itself will alleviate some of these issues too.
And sometimes, peer pressure in any kind of party or fiesta, I mean, there can be some kind of like peer pressure that, hey man, come on, take a little bit, you will feel good, you will feel better, I mean, let's have some fun and enjoy the party to its fullest. So, I mean, people should not feel pressure by any kind of influence on them that, I mean, if they know that how toxic it is. For example, if somebody is advised to take some kind of potassium cyanide, KCN, just for fun, nobody will ever think about it. So if we can tell people that not to come under any kind of peer pressure or any kind of influence or pressure from whatever source it is may concern, so then people will become a little conscious that this is something which is very harmful and we should not go for it.
Absolutely. I think that's a good idea too. Talking to the kids about peer pressure. And I think you hit the nail right on the head. A lot of this is just education. A lot of this is just talking. And if we actually can have the government enforce the law and help to cut down on the supply of the drugs in this country, then that's when we step in as good Samaritans, good civilians, by teaching. And I think a collaboration between government and citizenry is the way to go to combat this issue.
Right.
So,
Exactly. For example, when people, when kids, 16-year-old kids, are taught how to drive a car, we sometimes say that, hey, don't get provocated or don't be influenced by if somebody is honking at you. You just feel free to drive in the speed that you are most comfortable. You don't have to drive fast. You don't have to make anybody happy. There is no competition, and never get into any kind of road rage. So these are kind of things that we educate our children when a person is 16 years old and when they are just starting to drive a car. So similarly, we can also tell them that don't get into any kind of provocation or don't feel pressured by your peers and pals and from your best friends also, if they try to influence you and tell you that it is a fun. It is actually not a fun. It is poison. It is toxic. It is harming you. It can even take your life. It can can put you behind bars. So these kind of things, if we as a parent can talk about it, and also in schools and colleges and also from the government, if there is any kind of like articles, blogs, posts, and if the government would take some kind of initiative, to give some kind of speeches. So what do you think? Will it work?
Yeah, I think that would be good. Again, it's all just education. It's all getting information out there. And idle hands make for the devil's work, is I believe the saying. And what's caused a lot of this epidemic within the pandemic. People are bored, they're locked up, there's nothing to do. They're in their homes, so they're drinking, they're doing drugs, they're experimenting. So we've got to keep people busy. Why do people in West Virginia mountains pop pills and do heroin? Because there's nothing to do. There's no jobs. They're depressed. So I think you're right. The information is key, getting information out there to people, but also keeping people busy, getting people to do stuff that's productive. That's another key. So on top of the information that you just talked about, we can also push and say, what are your hobbies? What do you like to do for fun? Go out and do those things. Because when we're locking people away, because of a shutdown, because of a pandemic shutdown, which was necessary at first, by the way, we needed that. We had no idea what was going on with COVID, but the result of that is people are locked up. They have nothing to do. They're alone. They're isolated. They're depressed. They're turning to drugs. So we have to teach people to be strong-minded, strong-willed, and at the same time, as you said, we have to give them the information and resources necessary to make an informed decision.
And Aaron, please tell our audience that how well you have actually made your people busy in cleaning streets and parks, and that way, you could make the places neat and clean and free from all kinds of waste materials, and also at the same time, in parallel, you can engage them to do something productive.
So yeah, I'm happy you said that. We clean the streets every Sunday, keep people busy, keep our environment litter free. That's another thing, with helping with people's mental health. They'll feel good. They see clean street. They feel good about where they live. They feel good about their environment. And we're expanding. We're going to become a non-for-profit. We're getting some backing from some corporations that I can't name until, we're actually a non-for-profit, and then I'll be very public about it. And what we're going to do is we're going to give people jobs. We're going to give a kid a job in the inner city to clean up his streets, to clean up his neighborhood, give him a few dollars in his pocket. Now, what does that do? This kid who has no employment, no opportunities, no job chances, nothing like that, instead of him turning to, a gangster and saying, I'll help you sell drugs. Can I have some, this is how it goes. People don't have opportunities, so they sell drugs for a bigger gangster, and then they get some money. Most of the money goes to the gangster, but they get, $100 a week, $200 a week. And that's a lot of money to a kid. So what we're going to do, we're going to pay them to clean the streets, $20 an hour or so, and they're going to get the money. And now they're going to have
pocket money. Yeah, that's a nice
that's good money, right?
And they can put it in their college fund.
Yeah, they're going to use it for whatever they want, food, clothing, college, whatever. The point is, we're going to give them money for doing something good. Instead of them saying, I need money. How do I get money? I'm going to turn to the only thing I know about in this neighborhood, which is drugs, which is crime, which is, stealing, which is burglary, which is any other way to go. We're going to stop that, because, there's not jobs in those areas. We're going to make the jobs happen. So that us cleaning the streets, we're going to keep people busy. We're going to put money in people's pockets, and we're going to stop people from turning to a career that will not only harm themselves, but harm other people.
I really salute you.
Thank you.
That's a very nice
way. We do what we can.
Exactly. That's a very nice way, to keep them busy. And if they're physically busy, if their mind is kind of busy with something creative, productive, and cleaning something means, beautifying the place. And, even, when we do a thorough spring or winter cleaning, and when my closet looks good, when my living room, the rooms, the garden, whatever it may concern looks good, I feel good. My mind feels good. Then I don't even feel like, okay, boredom is no more with me. So that's a very nice way, very productive and very creative way to make people, creative and busy. So let's talk about the Ukraine peace, which is unfortunately the peace is still pending. This is an ongoing super turmoil, genocide, and war crime on Ukraine. Let's talk about the Bucha massacre, which was the killing of civilians by the Russian armed forces during its fight for an occupation of the Ukrainian city of Bucha amidst the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Photographic and video material of the massacre emerged on April 1st, 2022, after Russian forces withdrew from the city. So my question to you is, where is this war going and how far? What is US's role in it? Because we see that essential commodities and gas prices in USA are rocket high and middle class people are suffering the most.
So it's a tough question because we don't know. That's the problem. And if you look at like the eastern Ukraine, which is the Donbass region, a lot of people were sympathetic to Russia. They were Russian separatists and they wanted Russia to take over. Now that Russia's invaded and killed their families, killed their neighbors, killed people they know, the civilians in that part of the region are not as pro-Russian anymore. So we just don't know. The Ukrainian army is making significant strides against the Russian army. They're pushing them more east, but they're also ill-equipped. You know, it's 800 miles from Lviv to the Donbass region, where all and Lviv. The reason I mentioned Lviv is because that's where a lot of the Western military supplies are coming in. That's a lot of miles that those supplies have to now travel. The Ukrainian army can't do this by themselves, which then brings up the next question: who's going to help them? If we help them, it's going to cause World War III. If the Europeans help them, it is going to cause World War III. So how do we bring people to the table and get Zelensky and Putin to talk? I don't know that we will. The Russians are committing a ton of war crimes. We're seeing, mass graves, civilians dead, hundreds of people just massacred. It reminds me of World War II. At the same time, the Ukrainian soldiers, the military, are killing surrendered Russian soldiers. That's not helping the situation either, because now both sides are going to be doubling down and killing civilians, killing captured soldiers, killing just about anybody they can, just because, you're Russian or you're Ukrainian. So I don't see an end to the war in sight anytime soon. Putin came out the other day and said May 9th, he wants to have a victory by May 9th. Why May 9th? May 9th is when the Russians declared victory over the Nazis in World War II. Mm-hmm. So that is in 31 days. I don't see this war ending in 31 days. Now, they're going to continue to bombard and shell the cities. Kyiv, Kharkiv, Mariupol is basically destroyed because them shelling the cities creates fear in the civilians. It causes the Ukrainians to keep some military within the big cities. But as the fight is moving east, the Russians are going to be digging in. Let's remember, the fight in the east has been going on for 8 years. It's been going on since 2014. Now there's just actually Russian troops actually helping out. For 8 years, Putin said, oh, there's no Russian troops there. They're not doing anything. Now there's Russian troops there. So I think the fight in the east is going to get worse. And it's almost going to become a war of attrition. Who has more soldiers? Obviously the Russians. Who has more people? Obviously the Russians. So can Ukraine hold out long enough? And is Ukraine going to be heroic enough to get the Russians to surrender themselves and lower their morale? What's his name? Napoleon said that morale is to soldiers as materials are in the ratio of 3 to 1. In other words, if you don't have morale, it doesn't matter. So the Russians have no morale. They're very upset over what's going on. The Russian soldiers feel like they lost tens of thousands of their brothers and sisters on the front lines. So, which they did, by the way. So they have very low morale. Now the Ukrainians, they just don't have enough troops. They're running out of military aid themselves. So it's almost going to become a war of attrition. Who can hold out longer? I think the Russians can, personally. And that's an issue, because then what happens if they take Ukraine? What's next? What's the next step? What do we do here? So I don't really know what the answer is. I just know I don't want to get dragged into World War III personally, and I'm sure you don't either.
I completely understand that. Now, in my understanding, since, I do a lot of researches and read a lot of blogs and watch TV. So the problem is that when Putin is kind of coming on the table to discuss issues with Volodymyr, so it's like Vladimir versus Volodymyr, Putin
Right.
versus Zelensky. It's just the way you pronounce, Vladimir and Volodymyr, so. But anyway, they're brothers, actually, Russia and Ukraine. So the thing is that it's very hard to sort out the current map of Ukraine. I mean, Russia is not willing to give up the territories that they have occupied, and Ukraine is not ready to give up the territories to Russia, which are gone. They want those territories back.
Right.
They want the original map of Ukraine. They don't want a disintegrated or a divided Ukraine. So that is the main reason behind the turmoil and the differences in opinion. And look at our situation, I mean, we are trying our very best to help Ukraine, and we are actually facing a lot of scarcity in the fund because, our own people, they are suffering on a day-to-day basis. So where do you see this thing is going, and if there is any better solution that we can do?
I think the eastern part of Ukraine is going to become Russian territory. I think they've been very strategic in their bombing of Mariupol, and now going after Odessa, because they want to control the Black Sea. They want to be able to control that southern port of entry because it will protect them from invasion from whoever they think is going to invade them. I don't really think anybody's a threat to invade Russia, but that's what they want. Putin was very strategic in saying he wanted to denazify Ukraine, whatever that means. So I don't see him backing down. He doesn't quite care about sanctions. He doesn't really care about economic harm to his people. So he's not going anywhere. I think he's going to keep going until Zelensky is dead. And I hate to say that, but I think that's his motive. I don't think he's going to back down. If he backs down, if he loses, the rest of the world will not take him seriously ever again. They are going to look at him as a failure. So he has something to prove here. He wants to show the US that he is the biggest geopolitical rival that the US has, and it's not China. So I don't see him stopping until they've taken at the very least, the eastern part of Ukraine, if not the whole country. Now, the Ukrainians are not going to stop until they get their country back. And I get that because it's their country. There's invaders in their country. I don't see them driving out the Russians. I can't see that happening. Again, they have 1/3 of the population. Their army is much smaller, and they're fighting heroically and they're fighting strategically. But at some point, it's going to be, like I said, a war of attrition. Who has more men? Who has more supplies? And I think the Russians are going to end up winning. It's just a matter of how the Ukrainian map is split. And I think that's the key question we need to look in the next few days. Is Ukraine willing to give up any of their territory? Let's remember the last time they gave up in 2014, they gave up the Crimea. They didn't give it up. The Russians took it, rather. And what happened 8 years later? Putin took it. Putin took the Donbas region and invaded. Let's look historically. Did giving Austria to Germany in 1938 stop Hitler? Did giving the Sudetenland in 1938 stop Hitler? No, he kept going. Then he went into Poland. So then he went into, Belgium and France and the Nordic countries. So, to stop this guy, people are saying, oh, he'll stop after Ukraine. I don't think that's true, but it's a delicate balance. Do we provoke him into going, or he's really the one provoking us, rather? Do we provoke World War III here? I don't know. It's tough. I don't want to, but, again, if you appease a bully, he's going to keep coming. If you punch the bully in the nose, he's not going to come back. So this is a very tough situation here. We don't want World War III, but Putin might be pushing us or pushing the Europeans to get involved even further to prevent a wide-scale World War III, because the question remains, if Putin wants to denazify Ukraine, what's stopping him from denazifying Latvia and Lithuania and Estonia and Poland and all these other countries? Very tough situation. We don't know what's in his head. And we're just going to have to watch for the next couple of weeks and kind of hope and pray for a solution.
Exactly. Now, the thing is that Erdogan, he tried his very best in Turkey, I'm talking about, to convince Putin. But the thing is about the land, the territory, and the map. So Ukraine wants to retain the original map of Ukraine. This is because, as you said, ever since the annexation of Crimea, it has made Russia very confident that they can do anything and everything. They can slowly and steadily, get their original territory back from Ukraine. And Ukraine is not going to surrender that easily. And as you said that, they are kind of being very difficult with the POWs, the prisoner of wars. I mean, the Russian soldiers who have been surrendering. They're butchering them, that's what I
Yeah.
heard. And Russia is also, staying rock solid in their agenda and mission and principle and ideology. And they want to denazify. So that is actually, who is the Nazi here? I mean, I just refuse to understand who is the Nazi here.
Well, Zelensky's not a Nazi, but there are Nazi or neo-Nazis within the Ukrainian military. The Azov unit is a unit of 900 to 1,500 special ops Ukrainian soldiers. They're Nazis. They're neo-Nazis. So I don't know if Putin is talking about them specifically. I think this is all a cloud of smoke that Putin's blowing just to try to take over. There is evidence, though, of neo-Nazis within the Ukrainian military, but 900 to 1,500 soldiers within the Azov unit, that's not the entire Ukrainian military. The Ukrainian military is hundreds of thousands of people. So to take this small little sample and say this is all of the Ukrainian military, I think that's wrong on Putin's
But
end.
is it this neo-Nazi? What is it? Very symbolic? Does he want to say that NATO or USA, we are Nazis?
Right. That's the next question is he using this just as a ploy, versus does he actually care? Because there are, I'm not going to sit here and say that there aren't neo-Nazis in the Azov unit. There are neo-Nazis in the Azov unit. They flash neo-Nazi signs. They have the symbol on their arm patch. They are neo-Nazis, but it's a small segment of their military. It's not the whole military. So you can't blame the entire military for that. Now, here's when Ukraine eventually wins, which I hope they do. Zelensky needs to disband the Azov unit and say, look, we can't have this anymore because you can't have neo-Nazis within your ranks. You just can't. So I think it's up to Zelensky, too, to say after this ends, no more Azov unit. You are disbanded. There's no room for any neo-Nazis in our military. And that'll also solve the problem. But for Russia to call them all neo-Nazis is just completely wrong.
I think, he is using it as a symbolic term. He means something, and he cannot really openly, publicly announce that these are the people who are Nazis in my eyes. But I think, there is some kind of inner meaning to it about the neo-Nazi term, in my
Fair
understanding.
enough. Right. That's the other thing is he hasn't outright explicitly stated who he's talking about. So again, I know that the Azov unit are neo-Nazis, but does Putin know that? Does he even know what he's fighting against? Does he even realize this? Or is he just using this as a ploy and wordplay, like you're saying? And he's evil. So he is probably just using this as a ploy to trick the people and use propaganda.
Do you think that we should continue our talk with Kremlin and we should try every possible way to convince Putin so that he can change his stand?
I don't think he respects us enough for us to do anything. So I would not continue. No.
Or
I don't
if
think
an ally of Russia, if we can talk to an ally of Russia, for example, Putin respects and recognizes Turkey. I mean, Turkey is a very neutral country.
I mean, we could use an ally, but the Russians have nothing to gain by talking to us. We've already cut them off economically. We've put all these sanctions on them. Putin doesn't care. So Putin doesn't respect us. He's not going to care what we say. But maybe using Erdogan would make sense. But even, the world is now talking about going to, perhaps using the yuan as a universal form of currency instead of the dollar. We have no sway in the world anymore. We have no respect. We have no power, really, in my opinion. Putting all these sanctions on hasn't gotten us anything. It hasn't helped with the war. The war's only gotten worse. So Putin has no reason to come to the table. And the only way, I like your idea, using an ally to try to talk to him might work, but that's the only way to do it. He doesn't respect Joe Biden. He doesn't respect our Congress. He doesn't respect Donald Trump when he was president. So the Russians have no respect for us. The Russian government,
Because he
that is.
thinks that we all are neo-Nazis.
He probably does, you know. So
So we
it's
have to
tough.
somehow convince Putin that, we are not neo-Nazis, because not everybody can be a neo-Nazi, I mean, there is a mix and match. I mean, it's a huge country, USA. We have 50 different states. It's so cosmopolitan, and it is the world's biggest democracy. So some people at some time, they can be difficult. And as you know, the whole world thinks that we are the police academy of the world. We are very bossy, trying to monopolize everyone. And, I mean, we should really elect some liberal leaders, right, who can be very friendly. And that is how we can make a difference. What do you think as your closing statement about
So I
being
think
friendly?
I don't know. I don't think we have any respect on the world stage anymore. I hate to be pessimistic because I'm an optimist, but uh, I think we need to build ourselves up first and look to ourselves and try to unite ourselves before we go solving the world's problems. 50% of this country hates our president. 50% of the country hated our last president. 50% of the country hated the president before that. So we're not even united on our own front. We're trying to solve issues of the world that we can't even solve our own issues. So I think we have to come together as Americans and try to combat our own issues before we combat the world's issues. Because if we can't even get along here, this is like, we're pouring from an empty cup. We're not able to even unite on basic issues in our own country, and we have our own unrest to deal with. So I don't know. I think we need to stop trying to be a world leader because we're not even a domestic leader, in my opinion.
I know, you are so true. You are really telling me the exact thing that, I couldn't say that. So we have to be very friendly. We have to be understanding. We have to consider that, we are America first, USA first, United States of America first. It's not that you are Republican, I'm Democrat, he is independent, or she is from the Green Party, or whatsoever, I mean, you are white, I'm brown, he's black. I mean, all these kinds of things, we should not talk about. I mean, we should respect, and we should really strongly try to harmonize the entire 50 states, and we should follow a common agenda, principle, ideology, and try to be other people's friends. I mean, not, I would rather, not increase an enemy. I would rather increase a friend, try to
Yeah.
work on a friendly basis. Then, right away I can easily solve a lot of issues and problems, because we have been fighting for years with so many countries, with so many nations, with so many people, ally, not ally, divorcing an ally, getting a new ally. So,
Right. Right. No, we have to seek friendship and allyship, not enemies.
exactly.
But we need to come together first, which we failed to do.
Exactly. We have to come together first. I completely agree with you. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Erin, for your
Thank
precious
you.
time. I know you are so super busy with your studies and with your party, and also with your work, with your
It's my
7
pleasure.
dogs. No, you have 7 pets, right? 7 pets.
6. Yeah, 6
Yes.
pets. Yeah.
The 4 of them are dogs, right? 3 of them are
Three
cats.
dogs, 3 cats.
3 dogs,
Yeah.
3 cats. Oh
Yeah.
wow, 3 dogs. So it's a perfect harmony. 50
Yes. As best we can, but I
Exactly.
do
That's a
appreciate
perfect
always
harmony.
being on.
50% of the population is cat and 50% is dog.
Yes.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I appreciate being on Asavari. Always a pleasure, and it's I
Yeah, we
like
try
being here.
to make our discussion fun loving, so that, I mean, it is not very dry and it is not boring. Because if it's boring, if the platform is, I mean, if people doesn't listen to us, then, we cannot really place our crucial issues to them and educate them, educate ourselves. So I want to do things on a very friendly basis. And as I said, Erin, that it's always indeed my great pleasure to have you, because you are so friendly, you are so patient, and you are so creative, that You know,
Thank you.
you come every month and you throw so much of light to the darkness and educate all of us. Thank you so much
Thank you.
for your precious time once
I
again.
appreciate it.
And
Thank
you
you.
are our star speaker, the one and only
Yay.
star speaker.
Thank you. I appreciate it.